What you're about to see is a real-life story, taken from the files of the police racket and bunco squads, business protective associations, and similar sources all over the country. It is intended to expose the confidence game, the carefully worked-out frauds by which confidence men take more money each year from the American public than all the bank robbers and thugs with their violence.
Captain Braddock. Captain Braddock. Ready.
Tonight, in what I call the case of Lady Luck, this deck of cards with the monogram of the Big Oaks Country Club is a symbol of how easy it is for innocent people to be fleeced, even in what seems to be a friendly game of cards. And yet the card cheat will always be with us, because of that human frailty that makes each of us think it can't happen to me. And certainly not when I'm playing cards with people I know. But it can happen, even at a country club like Big Oaks, which prides itself in its exclusive membership. The head of the house committee was Tom Grant, a young architect of considerable talent. On this particular afternoon, he had just showered and dressed after a round of golf when Sam Bentley came into the locker room.
Hey, I thought you were still in New York.
Well, I wound things up a little sooner than I expected. The deal is all set and the money's up. If I don't build this town the finest hotel in the country, it's all your fault.
My fault? Well, how do you figure that?
Well, you're going to design it and draw up the plans.
Welcome home, Sam. It's good to see you.
Thanks.
He beat me again.
He did, huh?
Oh, really, Sam? I can't tell you how much I appreciate this.
You just say it with blueprints. You do as good a job for me as you did on the Bentley building, and I'll be satisfied. So how about coming around to the office tomorrow? We'll kick a few ideas around.
Oh, that's a date. I'll be there at the crack of dawn.
Well, I won't be. You see, my wife doesn't let me out that early.
Your wife?
I got tired of being the club bachelor.
Well, aren't you the man that's just full of surprises? Sam, you know all I wish you.
Thanks.
Well, who is she? Is she one of our crowd?
I met her in New York.
Well, when did all this happen?
Between El Morocco and 21. There was a traffic jam, and I felt I had to talk about something, so I began to tell her about my little gray home in the West, how it needs a woman's touch, how you fellas were always bragging about your lovely wives. Seriously, Tom, you're going to like Julia. Everyone does.
Oh, I'm sure I will. And wait till Betty hears about this. Will she be excited?
I've told Julia so much about Betty that she feels they're practically old friends already. Go on.
She's been married before. She lost her husband in the war, Sam told me. He was a colonel in the Air Force, killed right after D-Day.
I'm curious to meet her. What time did you tell Sam we were having dinner?
7-ish. I do hope you girls will hit it off, Betty. It'll mean a lot to Sam, and a lot to me.
Of course we'll hit it off, darling. I only wish I wasn't so busy with this work in the children's clinic. Anyway, I've arranged a lunch for her at the club on Friday. And I'm going to do everything I can to see that she gets around.
Good. But, Betty, you know how clannish women are. I remember how they snubbed Rita Dexter when...
No, that won't happen to Sam's wife, darling. Look, everyone adores Sam. They're going to lean over backwards to be nice to her.
You're beautiful.
What a charming house.
I'm glad you like it.
Yes, I do. And when I see how people live here, everything so spacious and yet so homelike, I wonder that I was ever content to live in an apartment in New York.
Then I didn't send you a bill of goods, did I, honey?
Indeed you didn't, darling. It was so sweet of you to arrange that luncheon. I'm afraid I'll be a little self-conscious. I always am when I meet new people, though I don't know why I should be after all those years as an army wife. If it weren't for bridge, I think I would have died from boredom.
Bridge? Well, now you're talking Betty's game.
You like to play?
Love to.
Personally, I could never see bridge. I was never even anxious to learn. Give me a good game of poker. That's my meat.
You can see Sam hasn't been married long. He still asserts his independence.
Well, if you really want a game of bridge, you'll find plenty of company among the golf widows. Club porch is full of them.
Maybe they're too good for me, particularly if they play a lot. My game's been getting a little rusty.
None of us are wizards, believe me.
Well, if the stakes aren't too high and Sam doesn't mind.
Mind? Why should I mind? In fact, it'll give me a chance to play golf without my conscience bothering me.
Betty Grant went all out to make Julia Bentley feel at home in her new surroundings. And soon, Julia was a part of the crowd. Betty's closest friends, Madge Adams and Alice Norton, accepted Julia graciously as a fourth at bridge. And almost every day, they would have lunch at the club and then follow it with an afternoon of cards.
4 clubs doubled. You doubled us in the game in rubber.
Well, I guess this just isn't my day. I never dreamed you could make it. When I doubled, I thought I had mad set in my own hand. I'm sorry, Betty.
So we lost. Well, I'd better be running along. This bridge is playing havoc with my work on the children's drive. Settle for me, will you, Julia?
Sure.
Betty's got 2 1/4.
And I?
$5 to the penny.
Again.
Julia loves to play, but her game is so erratic.
Worse than yours?
I'm a champ by comparison. And now, of all things, she's insisted that we raise the stakes.
That doesn't make sense. Why would she want to do that?
She's quite a character, really. She found out we used to play a higher game, and she thinks we're keeping it down out of consideration for her. She's an awfully good sport about it.
As the stakes went up, Julia's luck seemed to be taking a turn for the better. And now, more and more often, Julia might be seen at the club at night, when the stakes were even higher. And all the while, those afternoon sessions went on as usual.
May I? An attractive cigarette case, Julia. New?
I saw it in Updike's window, mentioned it to Sam, and the next thing I knew, he bought it for me.
It's your bid, Julia, and you've certainly been holding the right ticket. When are you going to cool off?
Well, you've just put the hex on me. I pass.
Me too.
Not Alice, though. 2 hearts. Well, if it isn't Julia, it's her partner. Pass.
I'm afraid that I'm going to have to bid 4 hearts.
Pass.
6 hearts. Oh, what can I say?
Pass.
Pass. Your turn, Madge.
I imagine I have just the right cards for you.
Oh, we didn't bid enough. It's going to be a grand slam.
It balances perfectly. One of these days, you're going to start taking the bank's word for it. What are all these checks to Julia Bentley? Julia Bentley, $21. Julia Bentley, $19. Julia Bentley, $17.40. $16.50.
Just don't remind me. But you be thankful I'm not Madge Adams. She's been playing with Julia in some of these real money games. Harry's reading the riot act to her.
Well, I'm not reading the riot act to you, but the money you're losing is real enough.
I know it is, darling. I'd like to quit. But I couldn't do that. It'd be too embarrassing all around.
I understand, honey. But take it easy.
I hesitated even to talk to you about this, Tom, but after all, you're head of the House Committee, and, well, you seem the logical fellow to take it up with. But frankly, I don't see how Julia Bentley can keep on winning at bridge all the time.
Well, I'll admit it puzzles me too, Harry. I suppose she's just had a marvelous run of cards.
Not just marvelous, it's uncanny.
Don't you suppose that Betty and Madge just aren't in Julia's league?
Look, Tom, my wife can hold her own in any bridge game. Why, Madge has even won in tournaments with the best. You don't suppose there could be anything phony about Julia's game?
That's a pretty serious charge, Harry.
Well, I'm not saying it's so. Just talking friend to friend.
Well, even if it were so, what would Julia have to gain? It certainly couldn't be money. Sam Bentley would give her the moon.
I don't know the answer. Don't you think you ought to look into it?
You're really putting it right in my lap, Harry. Sam Bentley's my best friend.
That's why I'm not circulating it around. Sam's tops in my book, too. But what if some other member of the club, not so close to Sam, started wondering about Julia's game? He might not even come to you. He might take matters into his own hands. That'd split the club wide open.
Well, I'd hate to see it happen.
All of our crowd would. I wish you'd get to the bottom of it, find out one way or the other.
Now, and please understand, Brad, what I've been telling you is unofficial and off the record. I'm looking for the advice of a friend. Maybe you have some suggestions.
Well, it sounds like a pretty messy situation, Tom, but I'll do all I can to help you.
Well, that's good enough for me. I'd even go for an investigation if it could be done quietly.
I think it could.
It's not that I'm hoping that you catch Mrs. Bentley, but rather that you can help me prove to Harry Adams that his suspicions are unwarranted.
But suppose an investigation proved this fellow Adams to be right.
Oh, you really think that it might?
Well, with human nature being what it is, who can tell? You'd be surprised the peculiar quirks that sometimes make people tick. But before we make too much of a point of that, we'll check with New York and other spots.
Well, I've told you all I can, Brad. Now it's in your hands. Whatever you do is all right with me. Oh, just one more thing, Brad.
Yes?
No one knows that I've contacted you. Not even Mrs. Grant.
I understand your concern, Tom. Your friendship with Bentley and your anxiety about the club. Just you rest easy and leave all your troubles with me, huh? So long, Tom. For Chip Madigan, who knew as much about cards as Einstein knows about relativity. I first met Chip in a raid at the Club Petite. He promised me he would go straight and had dealt his last palmed ace. I told Chip I needed him, and he said he'd be right over.
Hi, Captain.
Come in, Chip.
What's the deal?
Probably a crooked deal. I'm hoping that this deck of cards might give you the story. They're from the Big Oaks Country Club. The gentleman left them with me, Chip, for examination.
Let's get a look at them. I was looking for shaving, Captain. You know what I mean? Sometimes they take the high cards, like the aces and kings, and shave them down so the deck can be cut easily. This deck's all right. Let's see, they're marked. No, they're not marked either. If anybody can spot a marked card, I'm the boy. No, that deck's as honest as George Washington, Captain. What are you after?
Oh, it's a card shark case. A lady.
Aren't you being a little polite, Captain? She's a card shark. She's not a lady.
Well, let's not be too technical, Chip. The point is, I want you to help me.
Uh-huh.
Now, her name is Julia Bentley, and she's been winning entirely too consistently at bridge at the Big Oaks Country Club.
Now, maybe she's a better player than the others. You can win honest, you know.
Yes, that's possible, but from the facts I have, it doesn't look that way.
She must be palming them or something. But how's a fella going to know unless you have a front seat?
I've thought of that, Chip, and you're going to have one on the 50-yard line. Now, I made arrangements with Mr. Grant, who's head of the house committee, to sponsor us as out-of-town guests at the club. We're from Minneapolis. Heads of a syndicate, lots of money.
Big deal, huh? Good, I like it already.
Now, we're looking for a site for a factory. We manufacture tractors, and while we're in town, we want to play a little golf.
Well, no, Captain. I can't play golf. Not unless there's some way of shuffling the clubs.
You'll get by all right. Just keep your eyes open.
All right.
Oh, excuse me.
Sure.
Yes?
Some dope on that Bentley woman just came over with a teletype. Played lots of bridge with Army wives. Won most of the time, but no one had anything on her. Before she was married, she was an assistant to the great Nicoletti, a magician. Toured with him for about a year.
Anything else?
That's all, sir.
Thank you.
Oh. I remember that Nicoletti. Sleight of hand guy. Oh, what he could do with the pasteboards. Well, Captain, it looks like we're on the track or something.
Yeah, at least we've established a beachhead, Chip.
Mm-hmm.
Chip and I obtained guest cards to the club from Tom Grant, who threw a dinner for us so we could meet his friends, including, of course, the Bentleys. Then every day we played golf, and later would join the ladies, at which time Chip would profess a great interest in bridge and kibitz the game a while.
Why don't you girls give up? Julia's much too good for you. How about a drink while the women battle it out?
Might as well.
You coming, Madigan?
No, thanks. I'm not thirsty.
May I?
My favorite fan.
Who's dead? Mine, and I pass. 2 spades. Pass.
I'm betting 4 spades.
You certainly play them for all they're worth, Mrs. Bentley. I've never seen anyone get more out of a hand than you can.
Pass. Pass. Pass.
May I see them a moment, please, Madge? Thank you.
Better fill up on cheese and crackers. No telling when we'll get dinner the way that bridge game is going.
Thanks.
You haven't forgotten that little matter we talked about.
Oh, keep your shirt on, Harry, please.
I don't see anything happening.
Plenty's happening.
Yes? What?
This is a very delicate business. And if you are people who know about what I'm doing, the better it is for the club. Now, that's why I'm not telling you or anybody else.
We waited until the next afternoon. Being Saturday, there was a good crowd around. Adams and Bentley were playing gin rummy when Chip and I arrived at the club.
How about it, Madigan? Would you like to cut into our gin game?
No, thanks. I'm enjoying myself.
As usual, the women were bridging. As usual, Julia was winning.
Hi.
Hi.
How'd you like to take my hand?
You know, if there's one thing that Chip likes better than bridge, it's showing off to his friends with card tricks.
I would have never taken you for a magician. Say, can you make a rabbit come out of a hat?
No, but he can make the ace of spades come out of a deck. Show him how you do it, Chip.
Well, I don't.
Oh, please do.
All right, you're breaking my arm. My friends want to see the ace of spades. Mrs. Bentley, would you mind going through the deck and picking out the rest of the aces for me?
Go on then.
I have them palmed right here in my hand. So you see now why I don't want to play bridge with you. The temptation to help one of my hands along might be too much.
Tell me, Mr. Madigan, how does one come to take up magic?
Well, in my case, it was a misspent youth. I used to haunt all the magic shows whenever they came to town. I remember when the great Nicoletti played the Majestic Theater, and I used to hang around backstage so much the doorman almost threw me out. Well, Nicoletti showed me a lot of stuff. And with the tricks he taught me, I could play bridge and take you to the cleaners day after day. Of course, I wouldn't. Seriously, it's easier to get away with a little undercover work in bridge than any other game I know.
Yeah, but I don't get it. Of course, I don't know very much about the game, but if you're playing with three people who are honest...
Well, I could still play the lone wolf and make myself a handsome profit. You see, in bridge, you have two things going for you if you're dishonest. You're dealing yourself or your partner the high cards.
You mean people really do that?
Oh, of course they do. I'll show you a simple demonstration. Miss Bentley, might I take your seat for a moment, please? Thank you. Now, supposing you were a sharpie, Mrs. Bentley, and you wanted to make a killing, and granted that you trained yourself to photograph cards in your mind.
Now, watch him carefully, Julie. Maybe you can learn enough tricks so I can retire.
Now, I'm going to deal out 4 hands of bridge. You'll notice that as I deal, every card is reflected in this cigarette case. Well, I could go through the whole deck, but this should be enough to give you an idea. Now, I know the king of clubs is in this hand here. The jack of spades and ace of hearts should be in my partner's hand. Yeah, a little trick like that could help one's game a lot.
We're getting quite an education.
Yes, we certainly are.
There's another little bridge trick I could show you, unless you've seen enough.
Oh, it's very interesting. Go ahead.
Please.
All right. Now, on this next hand, Mrs. Adams, you're going to be the dealer. Now, you're my opponent. Yet when you've dealt the cards, you will have dealt my partner and me all the high ones.
Oh, that's impossible.
Well, we'll see if it is. Now, suppose we play this hand that's on the table now, and I've just taken in the first trick. Now, I'd finger it and pretend to be meditating about it, but actually what I'm doing is stacking the deck for your deal. Now, on the next trick, suppose we turn the cards face up like this. I'd finger it again, toss the cards around, pretend to be memorizing what's been played. But again, the first and third cards are the highest.
You're fixing the deck just how you want it. And no one would ever realize it.
Well, now that you get the idea, suppose I rig up the rest of the deck real fast, and we'll see what gives. There, now they're all ready. Hands over, I've picked up the cards to shuffle so that I may hand them to you to deal.
But after all the work is done, you're mixing all the cards up again.
That still doesn't disturb the stacked deck. Why, you still have the ace, king, four, deuce, and so on, just as I stacked them right on down the deck. So you see, you don't have much of a chance playing against a Sharpie. Even though you dealt, my partner and I still wind up with the high cards.
This makes me feel as though I never want to play bridge again.
I don't think that's what Chip was trying to prove. For bridge can be a lot of fun, providing you know what you're doing and whom you're playing with.
Well, anyway, it was a marvelous show. I think it calls for a round of drinks. Come on, everybody. I'm buying.
All right.
I'll be in a moment, dear.
I'm sorry that we had to do it, Mrs. Bentley.
Sorry you had to do what?
Maybe this will make it a little clearer. My card.
Oh. Now, Captain Braddock.
If you're fearing arrest, Mrs. Bentley, no official charges have been made against you. However, justice has a way of being served. The sentence you're facing is more severe than might be given to you by any court. For you'll have to continue being part of a community that is suspicious and distrustful of you, tolerating you only because of your husband. Your job will be to win back the respect of his friends if you can. And in the meantime, you'll have to go on living among them, seeing them every day.
How can I? How can I face them?
I'm afraid you'll have to, Mrs. Bentley.
I haven't any choice if I want to stay here with Sam. I promise never to touch a card again.
I'm sure you won't. And now, since I seem to be acting as both judge and jury, I think that your sentence should also include a fine. A fine of $5,000 made payable to Mrs. Grant for her favorite charity, the Children's Clinic.
Thank you. I've been such a fool.
Now, if you're wondering what prompted Julia Bentley to cheat at cards, my analysis is that card manipulating got into her blood like dope, and she couldn't refrain from it even though she didn't need the money. Now that the case of Lady Luck is closed, a word of advice. If you must play cards for money, keep the stakes low. Know what you're doing. Watch whom you're playing with, or what happened to Betty Grant and her friends at their country club could happen to you. I'm closing this case now, or rather the courts will, but there'll be others, because that's the way the world is built. Remember, there are people who can slap you on the back with one hand and pick your pocket with the other. And it could happen to you.